Hello and welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1. We're following Vidura, who left Hastinapur, the capital, just before the huge war happened, stayed out in exile on pilgrimage, even during the war and even after he learned that the war was finished and had a good outcome. He remained out, and he had ventured all the way to the Saraswati River on foot, of course, and then was moving westward along Saraswati. Is it westward? Yeah. And then eventually came to Yamuna River. So now we're going to hear that. So today what you're going to do is you're going to have Vidura meet the person that he wanted to meet. The reason why he kept staying out, even though he could have went back home, is that he wanted to meet Vidura. He wanted to meet Uddhava, or somebody of Uddhava's stature. So for most of you watching this, you'll never have heard of Uddhava before. However, Uddhava is a really important person, and actually, probably most of you have heard of Bhagavad Gita. There's another Gita that Krishna did. Besides the Gita to Arjuna, there's a Gita that Krishna gave to Uddhava. It's called Uddhava Gita, which is just as amazing as Bhagavad Gita, pretty much, but just isn't very famous. And it's in the Bhagavatam. You'll hear it in the 11th part of the Bhagavatam. So Uddhava is a very important person because his relationship with Krishna is somewhat formal, in the sense of it always remains respectful and things like that. He never crosses into the line of being very friendly, game playing and stuff like that. He's always in a kind of a formal position. So it's like a lot of people would be with Krishna, but he's the most intimate of those type of people. So he actually is an advisor of Krishna, like a personal, when you have a personal assistant that's just part of your body, almost part of your life. That's like what Uddhava was to Krishna. And in fact, Uddhava looks so much like Krishna that when Krishna once sent him as a messenger to Vrindavan, the gopis, for a good chunk of time, for a good chunk of minutes, thought that he was Krishna. So that's how close he is and how intimate he is with Krishna, even though it's not in a friendly or one of those kind of relationships. All right, so he's very, very special person. And that's why I wanted to meet him. So let's see. Hello, hey, let me put on my glasses. You guys need to see my glasses. Melissa, Abhishek, Malar Paul, Samantha, hey Samantha, and hey Dotji. All right, so get ready to hear about Uddhava. Now, Uddhava is usually a very intelligent. That's his main characteristic, is a great deal of intelligence. That's why he advises Krishna on like strategy and stuff. So he's not going to be his typical self when Vidura meets him. Let's see why. So Vidura crosses beyond the wealthy kingdoms and goes into the jungles of Kurudesh. Kuru jungle. Believe it or not, there used to be jungles around Delhi. He eventually comes to the Yamuna River, where he meets the blessed devotee Uddhava. So at the Yamuna River, he meets Uddhava. There's 3 rivers which are considered super important. There's the Ganges, the Saraswati, and the Yamuna. Of all those 3, the one that is most associated with Krishna and Krishna's activities is Yamuna. And so when Vidura finally arrived at Yamuna, that's where he found Krishna's friend Uddhava, or Krishna's advisor, or whatever. Vidura embrace. Okay, let me read you this little introduction about Uddhava. He says, Shuka describes Uddhava as the renowned companion. That's a good name for him, companion. The renowned companion of Vasudev's son. That's Krishna. Vasudev's renowned companion. It's a good short description. And a profound graduate from Brihaspati's school. So Uddhava went to Brihaspati's school and graduated from that school. So he's super, super, super smart. Vidura, when they met, Vidura embraced Uddhava with deep affection and asked about the welfare of his friends and family among all attractive. Now, guess what? The whole rest of the chapter are the specifics of Vidura's questions about different people. And if you were following in the first part, if not, you can go and find the playlist of the first part. But in the first part of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a scene where Arjuna comes back from Dwarka after being gone for way too long. Arjuna comes back and Yudhishthira goes up to him and questions him about what's going on in Dwarka, Krishna's city. That scene, the way everything happened is very, 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 very parallel to exactly what's going to happen now. The way that Yudhishthira kept asking questions and Arjuna kept saying nothing. And the questions were getting more and more and more pointed into the point of what's going on with Krishna. And the person being questioned just keeps saying nothing and nothing. So what I'll do is I'll just read through this pretty fast. If there's something to explain, I'll explain it. Vidura embraced him with deep affection and asked about the welfare of his friends and the family of the all-attractive. He described that family as, quote, ancient personalities who descended into this world at the request of Brahma, who himself was born from the lotus springing from the navel of the most ancient of those persons. So this is a real interesting way that Vidura described Krishna's family in Dwarka. They're all ancient personalities descended into the world, so they're all avatars from outside of our historical timeline. And the reason why they descended into the world was they were requested by Brahma. When you get to the 10th canto, you'll see the whole story of this, how this happens. So, requested by Brahma, they entered into the world, and Brahma is the guy who was born from the lotus spring from the most ancient. So he's saying is Vishnu is Krishna. Okay, they are here to bring good fortune to the world. Do they fare well in the house of King Sura? That's his first question. How is Krishna's whole family? How is our brother-in-law Vasudev, Krishna's father, the greatest well-wisher of my family? He's like a father, and he's just like a father to his sisters, and pleases his wives by giving them his very best. Is he happy, dear boy? That's interesting. The way that Vidura praised Krishna's father was by describing how he treats women. He treats his sisters like a father, like he's very parental and protective towards them. And he treats his wives like they deserve the best. And that's a great man. And then he goes on to question, now he's going to ask about Krishna's children. And so you'll hear a couple of the most significant of the many children of Krishna. How is Pradyumna, the commander of the Yadu armies? Blessed Rukmini gained this heroic child as a result of her respect for priests. He is the origin of Kamadev, the divinity of romantic love. Is he happy, my dear boy? So that's one of Krishna's foremost kids, is Pradyumna. How is Ugrasena? Ugrasena is Krishna's uncle or something. How is Ugrasena, the leader of Krishna's allied clans? Krishna, whose eyes bloom like 100-petaled lotus, restored him to the throne. This is his grandfather. Restored him to the throne he had given up all hopes for in exile. So this is the part of the long story. Ugrasena is Krishna's grandfather. He was the king in Mathura. He was usurped by Kansa and put in exile or house arrest, and then after Krishna dispensed with Kansa, he put his grandfather back on the throne. So Vidura is asking about him. My gentle boy, how is Krishna's son Samba, who looks so much like his father? Jambavati gave birth to this boy as a result of richly upholding many vows, for he is none other than the god Guha, previously born from Ambika. So who's this Guha from Ambika? That's Kartikeya, whose primary mother was Ambika, Shiva's wife. Guha is the name for Kartikeya. So one of Krishna's children, Samba, is the same personality who's Kartikeya, who people kind of sort of associates for some reason with the nakshatra Kritika, because the women who took care of Kartikeya were called the Kritikas because they were divorced. The Kritik means cut, to cut off. So anyway, the Kartikeya is the Kritik because he was a warrior. He cut things off. So Samba also was a great warrior. Is Yuyudhana well? From his friendship with Arjuna, he acquired all the secrets of archery. So Yuyudhana is one of Arjuna's friends, and because he was friends with Arjuna, he got a lot of benefits from that. The people that you are friends with and you hang out with, they rub off on you, and you get their qualities. So Yuyudhana acquired all the secrets of archery because he was a very close friend of Arjuna, who's the best archer. But he also acquired a relationship with the one beyond sight, Krishna, more intimate than what even great devotees and ascetics can achieve. So he became very close to Krishna because he's very close to Arjuna. And Arjuna is super close to Krishna. Yudhisthira keeps asking. Well, the whole time Uddhava is just like not answering. So he keeps asking more and more questions. How is Shvapalka's son, or Akrura? Is Akrura doing well? Akrura is an uncle of Krishna. He's wise and faultlessly devoted to the all-attractive one. Once, when he saw the dust on the path marked with Krishna's footprints, he lost control and fainted out of love. Akrura is a little bit famous because you could see how much he loved Krishna, because one time when he just saw that Krishna's footprints were leading to like his house or something, he fainted out of excitement. How is Devaki? Devaki is who? Krishna's mama. How's Devaki, the biological mom? How's Devaki, the daughter of the Bhoja king Devaka? Like the mother of the gods, she gave birth to Vishnu. So she's actually Aditi of Punarvasu. Like the mother of the gods, she gave birth to Vishnu. She conceived the divine in her own womb, just as the three Veda generate the meaning of sacrifice. So just like the Veda is the womb of all meaning and knowledge and information, it's the womb, it's not the child. You have to interact with a womb in order to get a child. So don't think that the scriptures and the Vedas are just can put knowledge in your head. You have to interact with them intimately, and then you can get knowledge from them. So that's why they're called the womb of knowledge. And just like the Vedas are the womb of knowledge, Devaki is the womb of Krishna. How is the all-attractive Aniruddha? Aniruddha is another one of Krishna's children. So I can't see if Vidura has any pattern. He doesn't seem to have any pattern in how he's asking about these people. How is all-attractive Aniruddha? He is the source of happiness and the fulfiller of all the desires for the Sattvatas, his family. He is originally the fourth principal being, who is the substrate of the mind itself, the womb of the knowledge-carrying speech. The mind is the womb of knowledge-carrying speech. Words carries knowledge. The mind is the basis for speech. It's the thing that can formulate and translate ideas into symbols and then push them. That energy or entity of mind, which you know from following along with part 2, is one of the things that evolves in the proto-universe, the energy of mind. The divinity that's caretaking that energy is Aniruddha. Right, Simone. You need to put yourself in there And then by interacting with the words and the content that's in the Vedas, you'll get the birth of the realization of the knowledge. 2. So he mentions 4 principal beings. This is Chaturvyuha. So let me just take a little detour for a second to explain the 4 principal beings. So you get this. There's a concept of Chaturvyuha, which means a fourfold expansion. So there's 4 important things which are governed as an expansion from one being. So you've got Vasudeva, Vishnu, or Krishna, and then from that one being, there's a fourfold. There's going to be Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Those 4. The 4th, Aniruddha, is the origin of the mind and its ability to convey knowledge through words. When Vasudeva appears as Krishna in Dwarka, Sankarshan appears as his brother Baladev. Sankarshan is the ability to hold things into shapes, to form objects. The ability for consciousness to generate objects is Sankarshan. That being who is the source of that power becomes Balaram when Vasudeva becomes Krishna, and Sankarshan. Vasudeva is the consciousness that perceives things. Sankarshan is the objects that it perceives. Aniruddha is the ability to interact and exchange information between subject and object. And then the last would be Pradyumna. Pradyumna is the love. He's the eros. He is the Kamdev. The 4th principle. So you have these 4 principles. There's the observer, the observed, the interaction between them, and the love, that the joy, the anand that's experienced by the observer and the observed interacting. So it's the 4 principles. The observer principle is Vasudeva. The observed principle, the objects that can be formed to be observed, are Sankarshan. The interaction between the two, which is epitomized by speech and the mind and the emotions in the mind, is Aniruddha. And then the joy of the experience, the pleasure of the interaction, is Pradyumna. Those are the 4 principal beings. Yeah, there's a lot of esoteric knowledge in really simple things when people go real fast and they just mention things by names. But later, they'll actually slow down and explain these things at some point. Right now, as the story is going, it's just Vidura. He met Uddhava and he's asking about people. And as he mentions these people, he calls them by specific names, or he says a word or two in praise of them. How are the others who consider Krishna the Lord of their very hearts and have no other business besides fulfilling his desires? So he mentioned some other people. Hridika, Satyabhama's son, Charudeshna, other children of Krishna. Are their deeds auspicious, gentle Uddhava? But oddly, this whole time, Uddhava doesn't reply. Yet he doesn't give a reply the whole entire time. So you just get silence in response to all of your questions. Silence is awkward. So Vidura, that's why he just keeps talking. So he just keeps noting this growing silence. So he tries to fill up the silence. So he asks more questions. And now you get a bit closer to, he's turning to relatives that are closer to himself. Now, the whole time he's been talking about people in Dwarka, a city that's quite far from Hastinapur, where Vidura lives. Now he's going to talk about relatives that are close to him. He's going to ask about them. How is the moral king Yudhishthir? Because he's been away for maybe more than a year. He's been away walking around while the whole war went on and everything. So he's going to ask even about the people that were living in his hometown, in his city. How is the moral king Yudhishthir? The arms of unfailing Krishna and victorious Arjuna were just like his own. With them, he completely protected the boundaries of morality. When Duryodhana came to his court, he felt jealous of the imperial wealth they had accumulated from their triumphs. How is he now? The unconquerable Bhim has unconquerable Bhim finally given up his snake-like anger towards those who offended him? Snakes. whether it's true and it must be true, snakes are epitomized or characterized in Vedic tales as having this super long lasting vengeance and grudges. They really hold grudges or whatever emotions they have, passions and loves, they also hold on to for a long time. And Beam is like a snake because once you piss him off, he is not your friend ever again. And so he's really angry for extremely good reasons at Duryodhana and everybody. And Vidura kind of wished that he could give it up and move on. So he asked if he did. By the way, this is why in India there's kind of a folk tale that if you kill a snake, where it's permitted to kill snakes, just like you can kill mosquitoes because they're dangerous, and you can kill tigers and things because they're dangerous creatures. If you kill a snake, however, you should burn it because snakes tend to have mates, although they're not like very social and live in and have like herds and things. They have mates, and when the mate comes and sees the dead spouse, it will look into the snake's eye and see a reflection of the last thing the snake saw. This is according to like the folktale in India. And then it will come and hunt you down and bite you. So that's just a little anecdote, fun thing that I learned when I was in India that just illustrates how much the snake holds on to its anger, that it will pass its anger on even after death to a spouse who will come and hunt you down. So Bhima was like that. Timothy Cohen. How is the famous charioteer who destroyed enemies with the Gandiva bow? Triv, you must know who that is. He pleased the mountain-dwelling master, Shiva, by pinning him within a cave of arrows when Shiva pretended to be a hunter. Arjuna actually was able to pin Shiva down. Arjuna is so good with a bow and arrow that Shiva challenged him once, not appearing to be Shiva, but appearing to be a hunter. Which makes sense if you're familiar with the symbolism for Ardra, right? He hunts the hunters. Shiva appeared as a hunter to Arjuna and challenged Arjuna to battle, and Arjuna could not defeat Shiva. But he could completely incapacitate Shiva, and he pinned him in like a cave of arrows. He shot so many arrows all over him. And Shiva was so impressed with that. Nobody could do that to Shiva. So he gave Arjuna a special arrow, a special missile weapon or something called a Pashu something. How are the twins? So the 5 Pandavas are Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjuna, and then these 2 twins, they're born from the Ashwinis. The Ashwinis are their father. How are the twins? The sons of Partha protect them in the same way the eyelids protect the eyes. So because they're the youngest, the 3 other brothers kind of dote on them a bit. And that also it reveals to you the nature of Ashwini Nakshatra. It likes to get attention. How are the twins, the sons of Partha, protect them in the same way the eyelids protect the eyes? Are they enjoying their own wealth? That's also very Ashwini. Are they enjoying their own wealth now that they have seized it from the opponent? Just like Suparna's son Garuda seized nectar from the thunderbolt wielder's mouth. Garuda stole nectar from Indra. But this is a long story. Indra let him steal it. Anyway, these are all long stories. That story is in my book, 27 Stars, 27 Gods. Alas, how is Partha herself? Partha is the mother of the 5 Pandavas, Kunti. How is Partha herself? Her husband could have conquered the 4 directions with his bow alone. Bereft of that great and saintly king, Partha retained the will to live only for the sake of her fatherless children. So she lost her husband, but she had 5 children. So she still maintained a lot of lust for life and enthusiasm to live because she had 5 kids to take care of. And she became a husbandless mother of 5 kids. Now you might say, well, she's a princess. Who cares? She's a queen. But she was the queen that was sent into exile and totally maligned the entire time. So she literally was like a homeless single mother of 5 kids. Right, Pashupati Astra. Which I think just means Shiva's weapon. He got Shiva's weapon. Okay, so now he asks about Partha. That's why Arjuna is called Partha, because his mother's Partha. Oh, gentle Uddhava. Now, I think he calls him gentle, especially because Uddhava is being very timid right now. Oh, gentle Uddhava, I can only lament for the man who became so wicked when Pritha's husband, his own brother, passed away. Who is that guy? Who is this man that Vidura doesn't even want to name, who became super wicked when Pritha's husband died? Pritha's husband is Pandu. Who is the guy who became so wicked when Pandu died? I know he cannot possibly be well. How can such an evil person be well? I am his friend, but he exiled me from my own home because he was completely dedicated to the crooked will of his children. That is why I now wander through the world in the company of Hari. It's interesting, he's not saying that he's wandering alone. He's saying he's wandering in the company of Hari. We keep ourselves incognito and hidden from the public eye, and by Hari's grace I am without fear or troubles, since I always see his beautiful feet. Sarati Ratyatra. Trivigram asks, and Abhishek is answering, right? Sarati means on the cart with. The person who's on the cart with you is a Sarati. Partha Sarati, the person who's on the cart with Pritha's son, Arjuna. So basically, like Abhishek says, it means the person who is driving Arjuna's chariot. Now, Uddhava, he still looks troubled. He just looks troubled and he still says nothing. Filling the strange silence with something positive, Vidura is going to say something else. So now he's going to come right to Krishna. He's going to say, of course, all attractive Hari didn't have to personally appear among us. But he's not personally with Hari. He's just saying, I'm wandering around the world with Hari, but he's alone. So he's going to make the point that Hari doesn't need to be physically with you in order to be with you, even though he sometimes is physically present. So he says, all attractive Hari, he could have protected everybody and everything in the same way, but sometimes he wants to appear, to be seen, and to increase the ability for people to know him. So he says, of course, all attractive Hari didn't have to personally appear among us to destroy the pride-maddened kings whose armies constantly roam the earth. He could have annihilated them and rectified the transgressions of the Kurus immediately without personal effort. But he enjoys personally protecting those who take shelter of him. Why else would the unborn bother to be born? Why else would he who has no need to endeavor involve himself in so many endeavors? Why? Because he loves. Why would you make any effort? Because you love someone or something. That's why you make any effort. It's the same exact thing for the absolute being. Vishnu takes appearance in birth, even though he has no need to take an appearance somewhere in birth, because he wants to exhibit and experience some love. Why else would he form any relationship with this embodied world when he is beyond material qualities and beyond the mechanisms of cause and effect? I'm just reading you, Yellow Crystal Warrior. I'm just reading you the Bhagavatam. That's the saddest part. That's the saddest part. The saddest part is that it's a little bit sad in the way that everybody's like, wow, this is great, you're reading me the Bhagavatam. Like, that's the saddest part. That's so rare that somebody would read you the Bhagavatam just as it is and explain what it is instead of their own personal agenda about it, or just totally ignore it and go talk about what their favorite speculator speculates. That's the sad part, is that all of this amazing material is just so accessible, but nobody cares. It's like if you cooked the greatest meal and you put it on the table and people keep munching on their cheap chocolate Kit Kats and they won't come to the table to eat your meal. That's what the Bhagavatam must feel like. So anyway, Uddhava still doesn't say anything even when Vidura directly mentions Krishna. So now Vidura just tries to smile at him. But what happens when Uddhava smiles at Vidura? Does Uddhava smile? When Vidura smiles at Uddhava, does Uddhava smile back? No, he just looks away. Then Vidura says, "Oh, my friend, please, sing for me." He tries to get Uddhava to say something. So he says, "Come on, talk to me, sing to me. I know what you really want to sing about is Krishna, so sing to me about Krishna. Sing for me the kirtan of he who is self-ruled, self-manifest, and to whom all other masters surrender. I have been on pilgrimage for a long time, but he is the pilgrim's most celebrated destination. I have bathed in many sacred waters, but I want to be bathed in the kirtan that decorates the path walked by the unborn when he took birth among the Yadu." This is really important stuff. Thanks, Truth. All right, so that's the end of the chapter. Like, as I said, it's kind of just a long monologue of Vidura trying to get Uddhava to say something. But for some reason, Uddhava is mute and won't even look at Vidura directly in the eye. Now, finally, when Vidura directly says, "Hey, buddy, talk to me. I've come all this way because I've come all this way looking for somebody like you. That's the whole purpose of any pilgrimage. Don't be silent. Talk to me." Now let's see. We're going to go to chapter 2 next week. Yes, Aaron. We're going to go to 2 next week, and then chapter 2, you're going to hear about Uddhava's reply. The opening sentence is that actually Uddhava had been going more and more into anxiety with every single word that Vidura had been uttering. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Relax, rejuvenate. Don't get too worried about the world. And then I'll see you again on Monday. Thanks for joining me as always.